say, each are going to pull with the same force in their direction. And this way, the forces in the end are going to balance out, and the community will be in the center of those forces being provided and being in equilibrium.
Which assumes a society of not, that's not describing a society of humans. That's describing a society of machines. Well, because because like you point out, that tug of war only works as long as that balance at each force is pulling equally.
Yeah. As long as those three forces are balanced perfectly, and the ground on which the whole system stays on is perfectly flat, then yeah, you're gonna pull, and the little object in the center never moves. But life is never a flat ground where everybody starts equal and then stays equal. The reality in the world is that the ground has hills and valleys, and while some forces pull uphill, other forces pull downhill, and gravity helps some forces and puts in the disadvantage other forces. So if you imagine that these three forces, which are the desire to make money, these three forces are all equal, and they pull on a ball, on an object, a spherical object. If the object is on top of a hill, in perfect center of the hill, that describes a perfect utopia of capitalist society. But in general, that equilibrium on top of the hill with forces that are equally distributed around the sphere, that example is an unstable equilibrium. The moment one of the forces, or maybe a breeze of wind, blows from one direction to another, those forces are going to be thrown out of balance, and then the ball is going to slowly roll downhill, and that will work in the advantage of one of those three forces. Or maybe it's not just three, maybe it's more. But one of those forces is going to become dominant, and it's going to keep pushing the ball downhill until it goes into a valley. And when the ball stays in a valley, that is a stable equilibrium. And that describes a monopoly, because that is one force dominating the rest of them to the point where they don't even exist anymore. And so I know this is abstract, and it probably requires a lot of people to imagine hills and valleys and balls and forces.
No, I mean, I think it's a fairly colorful description, and it makes a lot of sense.
But the practical description of this Butcher-Baker and Brewers, the BBB, which is just parentheses. You know, like
BBL.
The Democrats had the Build Back Better BBB, and then Donald Trump came back with the Big Beautiful Bill. Another BBB.
Everyone really likes fucking.
Well, I think it's a code. It's probably somebody is trying to say something. Hey, because the Standard and Poor rating, there is a triple A, and I think U.S. is downgraded to double A, or I'm not even sure how those work.
Nah.
But I think somebody's trying hard to take the whole world into the triple B echelon. which
Bullshit.
in which a system is
I didn't even know that. I thought that was just the name of the
Triple B.
company, right?
the BB.
The AAA, the insurance company.
Well, there is a AAA insurance company, but the AAA, I don't know. Maybe that's another code, but aside from the AAA, there's the investment jargon. And lingo. I'm not familiar.
Oh, yeah.
And then the ratings from Standard and Poor and other rating companies can be AAA, AA, and then you've got the triple Bs and double Bs. We need to watch that Big Short movie again with
yeah, I think
with Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell. Margot Robbie. But anyway, so the Butcher, Baker, and Brewer are all starting initially at the same level. There are three men, let's say. There could be women, and I'm not going to say which jobs are for women and which jobs are for men. I'm just going to say there could be
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
So, but what I'm trying to say is the Butcher, the Baker, and the Brewer are three wise guys that are trying to make money, and they're driven by their own self-interest.
Sure.
And there's no moral, there's no kindness, none of that stuff, because they're just self-interested. and then life is good for them, and everybody's happy, and they all pull in the same direction, and the community is getting the proper meals, and every man and woman and child is wakes up or goes to bed with their belly full of meats and bread, and the adults drink a beer, and everything's perfect. But then slowly life goes on, and let's say, like I said, in my assumption, they're all men, but they can be women. It doesn't matter. The spouse of one of these three falls ill, and without picking anybody in particular, let's say the baker's spouse falls ill, and then the baker doesn't have enough time to spend in the business, so slowly their business declines. Very little, not much. But what if the spouse dies from that illness, and the baker is just emotionally scarred so much that they pick up drinking, and slowly their business declines. In a utopia, in a libertarian utopia, in a capitalist utopia, you would say, well, somebody else from the community is going to come up and become a baker. Well, yes and no, not necessarily. The more likely thing to happen is that the butcher, again, I'm not picking anybody in particular, but the butcher, let's say, is going to look at the bakery and say, I can buy off this guy. I can hire somebody that knows how to bake bread and turn that business profit into my profit, which is generally what's going to happen.
And yeah,
they're going to do that because they are self-interested, because that's their drive. The drive is, I want to make more money.
It also stands to reason that assumption is correct, because the assumption that some other it's really hard. It's much harder from someone new from the community to rise up and form a new bakery than it is for someone who already has business acumen, who already has an accumulation of capital, to come in and simply say, well, I already know how the food industry works. I'll just buy this guy out.
It's not it's not unheard of. There are cases where one of the children of the baker can take over the business and save their parents'
Yeah,
business. It's possible, but it is also possible that that child is also emotionally scarred by the loss of one of the parents, and so they might not feel like picking up the business,
or has
but
inexperienced, poor business
so
sense.
there is, but
whatever.
what I'm saying is there is a reasonable possibility that the butcher, being self-driven, is going to be interested in buying the bakery. And when they do, they'll make an offer to the baker, and the baker is going to be bought out. They're going to sell the business and allow the butcher to take over, and maybe initially they'll split the profits a little bit, give something to the baker, whatever. But in the end, the butcher slowly will absorb the bakery into their own business. So now the butcher has two businesses, but again, in all this, again, in an ideal situation, without the butcher being kind or being moral, he will keep the balanced dinner that they provide to the community. So the meat's going to stay the same, the bread's going to stay the same, and then the brewer is going to make the beer just like they've done up until now, no problem, no changes. But then the butcher will now have more profit, and slowly they will realize that they can also make more money if they buy out the brewer. And and many times that will fail, but every now and then that will succeed. The butcher will be really greedy.
Whatever happened, the brewer is aging.
The butcher also, now he's making more profits. He can go
double the revenue stream.
He can go to the bank and say, "Hey, I need a loan to buy out the brewer. I'll pay interest," and then they'll really have leverage in the community and in the market. And so they will, let's say, go make an offer to the brewer. The brewer himself or herself, the brewer might not be interested at first, but then the spouse of that person, let's say it's not that bad of a community that everybody falls ill, but maybe the spouse says, you know what, if you sell and we get this many millions, we can spend the rest of our lives on cruise ships, buy a house in the Bahamas, villa, mansion, whatever, spend our time with Mai Tais on the beach, and when we get bored, we can go every time to Whistler in Canada and ski, and Austria and wherever, Switzerland, and these nice places, Italy. And so the brewer will sell out. They will be like, "Okay, butcher, you want to buy this? I'll give you my business and you pay me this much," and maybe they work out a 5% of the profits every year. You send it to me, and that's it. And at that point, the butcher has all three businesses locked. They're his businesses. What happens then is that the butcher has all this time has put in an effort. This is an effort to absorb all these businesses. The effort is not for nothing. He has to now cash in on that effort. He's not looking to make more money working 3 times more. He's looking to make more money, period. And so when he has the dinner market cornered, the next thing that he potentially could do is optimization, meaning he's going to look at the return of investment on each of these 3 businesses. And let's say for the butchery, for every $1 he puts in, he gets 20 cents profit. So he gets a 20% profit. And then he looks at the bakery, and the bakery, for every dollar he puts in, he gets 10 cents profit, which is 10% return of investment, I guess. Or and then he looks at the brewery, and he sees that for every dollar he puts in, he gets a 50% profit.
Yeah.
So the biggest profit is going to be the brewery.
Which means you have to specialize into
So
brewery.
then he's going to say, well, this is interesting. Of the money I have to invest, I will invest in meats, I will invest in breads, and then in beers. All types of beers, all types of stuff. But really, the most money I'm going to get from the beers. The bakery is getting me 5 times less profit than the brewery. One way that I could make more money is by telling the community, you don't need to eat this much bread. Instead of eating 2 slices of bread, just eat a slice and a half, and that half slice of bread turn into another pint of beer or an equivalent amount of beer, and just drink more beer. Beer has protein. It's made of the kind
beer
of
is made of grain.
Yeah,
that's like the
kind
same
of
thing.
The same thing. You know? And so when and let's say he pulls that off. Let's say the community says, yeah, you know what? Everybody's a little happier because, they're all giddy because there's a little more alcohol involved in all that. So he pulls that off. And now the dinner is no longer balanced. And if he pulls that off, the next thing is going to be like, well, what about the meats? You don't need this much meat. It's not the same. It's grain versus protein, animal protein, but really, aren't you more happy with more beer?
Yeah.
You're
a happy little drunk. Yeah.
You're happy.
You don't need all this protein.
And so
shit.
slowly, the butcher, who is no longer the butcher, but he's the monopolist of the dinner market,
of the food industry in the local
of the dinner
community.
market.
Yeah.
He's gonna turn the community into an unhealthy diet community.
A bunch of alcoholics.
Many of them are going to be alcoholics, and and then from here on out, he can do what? He can say, well, this beer thing is interesting. What do they like about the beer? Well, actually, they like alcohol. Well, how about a hard liquor store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to specialize.
You're right.
The principles of not only Adam Smith of classical neoliberal capitalism, and also philosophers that would come out later, Keyes, all these guys, economic wisdom dictates you need to specialize to what produces the most amount of money.
Right.
Like everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah. And then the butcher, let's say, grows old, but he has 5 children and he's educated them all. And also he can point to himself, look at me, I'm a success story. Don't you want to do the same as I'm doing?
Yeah.
If I have enough money now and we have enough leverage with the bank, if you want to, son number 1, go to the next town and do the same thing. We can open up a butchery and bakery and brewery. We'll take over the market. We'll corner and buy out everybody else, and then do the same with them, and then the grandchildren of that family at some point are going to be like, well, I don't want to do the butcher bakery kind of thing. I want to, I've figured out like
paint.
hard, no, but some of them are going to try to be an artist, but if they stay in business, they're going to be like, well, actually, you know what? this addiction thing works. You know, hard liquor store works better than a brewery, which works better than a butchery, which works better than a bakery. But you know what's really addictive? Opiates.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I want to open up a pharmaceutical company, and I can sell really good stuff and make a lot of money with a very big rate of return of investment in the process. And so, because, you know, like the energy to make a little tiny white pill or pink pill doesn't is
Adam
not that
Smith
much.
was a British person. You know,
So yeah, so what I'm
He's a
saying, and by the way, for people that have not read Adam Smith, I've read, and I'm not done. I'm not finished. I'm still reading. But for the people that haven't read, I will tell you that the book Wealth of Nations is not. Let me find this real quick here. Wealth of Nations is not only about the butcher, the brewer, and it goes beyond. It goes beyond this subject. What? It goes into monetary and import exports and all of that, and I know a lot of folks that have not read Wealth of Nations. They think that this story of the butcher, brewer, and baker is about the invisible hand. That's not correct. This story of the butcher, brewer, and baker is like in book number 1 in the chapter 3, I believe, or chapter 2, something like that. So it's really, really early in the book. The term invisible hand is somewhere in the middle of the book. The book has almost 800 pages. The invisible hand shows up in page 384, which is almost the middle of the book. So the story of the butcher and the baker and the brewer is not where he coined the invisible hand. The invisible hand term is introduced when Adam Smith talks about, again, the self-interest of a local manufacturer to appeal to materials that are local to his country and avoid imports from other countries. So, as if guided by an invisible hand, that local manufacturer is going to help out other manufacturers in his own country and not help out manufacturers from other countries. Which if you think of our situation today in
not
US,
really.
NAFTA and all of that has ruined the invisible hand. It was
100%. But I mean, I also don't think that's necessarily so, because Adam Smith operates on the idea that everyone is purely set out to make as much money as possible, to optimize business as much, because that's what capitalism is about. It's about optimizing as many sources of revenue that you have at your disposal as possible. What happens is your local community is it's entirely possible, and in the case of Great Britain, this was the same way. Your local community is going to end up at a point where you've expanded production so much not only do you not have a big enough market, this happened with British coal and British poppy seed with opium. Your capacity to produce exceeds your market's demand for whatever goods you happen to produce. Even if they are an essential good, you don't have anywhere else to sell. And also your local manufacturers, your local labor force, your local supply chain is now unable to provide you with the material input, the capital input to produce. And so that's where you get the common saying, capitalism requires a world that creates infinite economic growth.
Yeah.
Because
so let's hold on one second. So first of all, I want to state clearly that I grew up in communism, and for me, communism is not it doesn't work as an option, and we can get into that. But the purpose of my conversation here, and I hope yours as well, is that we're not trying to establish or solve the world. We're just showing that whenever humans think that they found a way, it feels that it's always the case that the human society, blindly leaps in that direction, and they don't understand the finite expansion of that principle.
Oh yeah,
there is a wall somewhere. You're gonna hit a wall if you go really, really fast in a direction. You're gonna hit a wall, or you're gonna jump off a cliff. the landscape is not infinite. Nothing can be, and so, for example, the word productivity, infinite, or the word productivity, the word progress. You can't just make those goals. Those are not goals for the human society. Those are means to achieve goals.
Yeah.
To achieve comfortable prosperity without, you're being prosperous, but to just like my liberty shouldn't encroach in your liberty, my prosperity should not happen at the expense of yours.
Right.
Right. So when people say, and by the way, the word of the day when Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations, the word of the day then was division of labor. That's
3 words.
Right, but I'm just the expression of the word of the day. The expression of the day in those times was division of labor. The division of labor fixes everything. We can make, and he gives an example where, if you have 10 people that work in making nails, and those 10 people can make like 40 nails in a day, meaning every person makes, on average, 4 nails in a day. But if you would have these people work in a divided labor system, that same company, that same manufacturing facility can make, I believe, 10,000 or 40,000 nails in a day. But in the book Wealth of Nations was published in 1776. Coincidentally, the same year where the United States left the empire by the Declaration of Independence. So really, what happened? There was an explosion in the population of Great Britain that nails needed to be produced on a scale of 1 to 10,000 or 1,000 times more nails. What? They had more ships to build, that many more, that they needed 1,000 times more nails, 100 times more saddles, or horseshoes, or no, there was no such thing. And by the way, a bunch of their people just left the country and started a new country. So really, there was no need. Actually, there wasn't a market. What happened, though, was they figured out that they can take these little trinkets that were produced in Great Britain, go with them to Africa, give them to the warlords in Africa,
and buy slaves.
And get slaves in return, and then take those slaves and bring them either to Brazil or to the Caribbeans for the sugar canes. And by the way, when they did that, they didn't get money. What they got sugar and rum. Two of the most addictive processed substances known to man. And where did they sell them? They sell them back to the people that were making the trinkets. Their own people, the British.
Yes, it's a cyclical.
That's where the Treasure Island novels came about.
Yeah.
Ho, 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 and a bottle of rum. Because everybody, and all the gloomy Oliver Twist and Charles Dickens, all the gloomy society, the people that were poor were really in the slums. And all of that was because of this trade triangle, the slave trade triangle, that was in the end causing a lot of misery to the British community, to the British society.
And that's sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So and that's actually perfect, because what I was about to bring up with your example, even in your parable and in Adam Smith's parable, there's one group of people who are not considered, not asked about, not thought of, anyone who isn't the baker, butcher, or brewer. And in this case, the people of Great Britain suffered for a long time.
It's true. But at the same time, the butchery, bakery, and brewery were not the only businesses.
No.
Just like there was a butcher, there was a horseshoe maker, there was a blacksmith, there was and so each of those people were pulling in their own directions.
Oh, of course. But not everyone is a business. Not everyone. Well, under Adam Smith, not everyone can be a business owner. Yes, but the vast majority of society is always composed of non-business owning laborers, and the only value they can add to a society is their labor. And so these people do not own or have an input in how production for a society is conducted, even though they are the largest group and the people who it arguably affects the most. So even in the situation where everyone kind of pushes back on the brewer, like, hey man, alcohol is addictive. You're producing a lot of alcohol, and our people are, you drink a lot of alcohol. First of all, you get fat, and then also you develop liver disease. You're malnourished. Your muscles atrophy. The rest of the society suffers and is unable to produce.
Back then, they had no laws against selling alcohol to children.
No.
And so a lot of those
children with brain damage. Fetal alcohol syndrome shit. Yeah. Because no one knew about that yet. Yeah. It's a society where the vast majority of people's input doesn't matter because they don't have a foot in the door in terms of what direction the business is going, the only value they can contribute is their labor. And that means inherently they are on an unequal footing, and whoever is in charge kind of has de facto say to act in a self-centered way. As you point out, they can just act almost with impunity most of the time.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in Britain too. That's what happened because Victorian era in the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain for a long, long, long time was very detrimental. The River Thames was full of just shit. It was full of garbage. It was polluted. The coal miners in Newcastle, in Scotland, in the north of the UK, suffered horribly because their production needed to keep up with colonialism, the expansionism of the British Empire. They were planning towards the end of the latter half of the British Empire. They were planning a railroad that connected Cairo to South Africa. They were building a trans-African railroad. They needed to keep up with that production. And also, there was another thing I was going to say. Goddamn. Oh, and infamously the Irish, who were intentionally starved out.
Right.
So that they were starved out, exterminated when they declared autonomy for themselves. They were really genocided to a man. Children, women, didn't matter. Deported, and all to make room for British landowners, unionists, predominantly Protestants, who would come and take over the now free land to create plantations that would grow cash crops to be sold back to the Big Island. And that's why 100 years later you have problems like the Troubles. To this day, people argue over Northern Ireland, which is an exclave created for capitalism and using violence and genocide. You know?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I understand. I obviously, you ask different people, they're going to give you different stories. Some of them are going to maybe make excuses or make explanations to why certain things are happening. And going back to the slave trade and the one family that benefited quite a lot from all of that is the British royal family. But every time people bring up reparations, nobody talks about the billions that the British royal family still has.
If I'm correct, they still on the books. Like in their accounting documents, they still have a lot of that wealth that came from the transatlantic slave trade.
Who would they give it back to? Who knows? You know, like, and understand. I understand. Okay, so the U.S. was the market for slaves, and they were selling to a market, but they were the ones that were bringing the people that were kidnapped from their homes. A lot of times, children. A lot of them died on the way.
Up until like the early 1800s.
Right.
Because they stopped.
There was the Royal Africa...
the Royal Africa Company.
East India Trade Company, I believe, that was also involved.
That was the really bad one.
Yeah. So none of that is brought up. Every time people talk about reparations, everybody wants to get money from the U.S. government, which... I understand.
And you should, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I think the guilty parties have to get together and
France,
face
the French government absolutely needs
the Belgian company.
The Belgians needs to just be wiped off the earth for that shit.
No, nobody should be wiped off. Let's not go. Let's not go in the other direction.
No, I'm fucking with you. No,
right? Yeah. Nobody should be wiped out, but they should definitely. King Leopold II. We're tearing our statues here for
Robert
some guys.
E. Lee.
Some guys that fought in the wars. That dude was chopping off children's hands.
Oh well,
and not only chopping them off. His guys, his goons, were wearing the hands around their neck like a necklace. Like, are you guys crazy? So anyway, I think we made our point. I think what makes you stronger can sometimes kill you. Is if you found that the division of labor is a great thing. Or the productivity is a great thing, you should also remember that productivity does make you stronger, but it can also kill you. And if you don't believe that, look at the Pacific Ocean garbage islands, and those are productivity.
It's productive. It's productive because you're looking at it, and I've made this point in school, and you've made this point as well at home. It's productive if you look at the segment of consumption that ignores the broader picture, because for plastic bags, to produce a plastic bag, you need to extract oil. And to extract oil, you need to go through the UAE and Saudi Arabia and a bunch of modern day slave driver countries run by oil barons and monarchies. And so you're already off to a bad start. Your supply chain is already tainted with the abuse of labor and the abuse of laborers. And then you consume the bag, they throw out the bag, they do whatever the fuck they want with that bag. And then that bag ends up in a trash can that now someone else has to pay money to clean up, or it destroys the world incrementally. And so if you look at the entire spectrum from conceivement and extraction to disposal, the plastic bag is actually a very costly, crappy idea, because it doesn't make sense fiscally or ecologically or morally. It only makes sense if you look at it from, I'm going to sell a bag to someone for 8 cents and then they're going to throw it away because it's convenient. Outside of that very short window of use, it is a terrible idea.
It's not. The window would be, I'm taking some raw material, I am making the bags, and then I sell them for money to someone else.
Yeah.
If you only look at that,
even that part,
model, you're making a lot of profit.
Yeah.
But the material, the part where you get the material, is not looking at what happens before you get the material. That material is a residue from the production and extraction and exploitation of I don't know if fossil fuel is the correct way, but from
non-renewable natural gas.
Right.
And most of that.
And then what happens after you sell the bag is also none of your concerns.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. That shouldn't be the case. If you look at the entire business model, what happens from the moment the natural gas or oil is extracted from the ground to the moment where the plastic bag is disposed on the ground or in water, if you look at that entire process, you're better off with the paper bags. And by the way, the paper bags also are not sustainable if you make the paper out of wood, out of trees. You should look at making paper out of hemp. and
Yeah.
get rid of the
Something
William
compostable.
Randall Hearst bullshit of hemp is a drug.
Right. Well, and even like most of the natural gas that you would need to produce plastic for a disposable bag, what is it? 40% of natural gas comes from the UAE today. The UAE is a state where only 1 in 6 residents are citizens, and the other 5 are generally foreign laborers who have had their documents confiscated, and they work.
So they're modern day slaves.
They're completely enslaved people who can't leave. It's
we should do the caveat. We look at this. Everybody should look at the statistics. The numbers might not be accurate or whatever.
But the latest statistic from my understanding, was 1 in 6 people in the UAE are citizens of the UAE.
Okay. Moving on, moving this, I guess the concept of businesses that.
Before we move on, I'm gonna use the bathroom really quick.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Go ahead.
Small intermission. We will return shortly.
The mic off. No, don't turn the mic off.
Okay.
Leave it on. Yeah, while he's gone, I'm gonna preface the next segment because it's possible that by this point it looks like we are heavily left-leaning, not heavily, but we're left-leaning. We've criticized Adam Smith's book, which I'm actually not fully critical, but I'm just my intent would be to push the brakes a little bit and figure out if is productivity always a goal. I would argue it's not. Division of labor, no. Even in primitive times, division of some people argue that cavemen back in the days, some were going hunting, some would stay home and build a fire, some would make to take care of the children. Those are divisions of roles that are not necessarily division of labor. In the old days, for example, a man would not make spearheads and then go to another man to get the wood sticks to make the full spear. The same man would make the spearhead, and then they would find a long pole, the straight wood, and slowly some of them proved to be better at making spears, others making knives maybe, or some other in the end the man that was making the spear was also the owner of that spear, and he would use that spear to hunt or to defend the grounds from other predators, either animals or other humans that would try to invade his domain, his grounds, hunting grounds, or family habitat, or whatever. So this division of labor is not necessarily a natural occurrence. And no other animal does that, right? The lionesses, they team up, but not because they establish consciously, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna chase the gazelle only up to that tree, and then you take over and you go chase her to the rock, and then my cousin is gonna go and chase her to. No, they chase, and some of them are waiting at different turns, so they, in the end, they team up to make sure that one gazelle is caught, and then they have something to eat. That's not division of labor in a lion's pride. The lion eats first, but also the myth that the lion doesn't hunt, that's not true. I've seen lions attacking elephants. When they're hungry, every animal's gonna do whatever they need to do. They're not gonna be like, well, I'm the king, you guys go and hunt, and I'm just gonna sit here pretty and comb my mane, or like that's not what it is.
Yeah.
But going forward, I guess from business to business, some people get some business people go into addictive production of addictive substances, and we've seen in today's world a lot of big pharma controversy and the influence they have on our political spectrum, and how even when the society is pulling back and is proving, hey, we're not addictive to your substance, don't give us this, they then go into the political apparatus and they try to issue laws to mandate their products. And so all of that is fine, but we should also be careful about dismantling some of the big production apparatus. In particular, a lot of folks are talking about the military-industrial complex being a type of business that is encroaching in our civil society and liberties. And again, it goes into that same paradigm. What makes you stronger can sometimes kill you.
Yeah.
Making weapons makes you stronger, but then obviously it can sometimes kill you. But I think that the maturity of that conversation needs to occur, because I don't think it is currently obvious. And the point I'm trying to make is, when you say that we spend whatever it is now, 50 times more than the next 20 countries combined, or I don't think that's what it is. If I remember correctly, I think we spend 4 times more than the next 20 countries combined. First, the reason we do that is because the way our production is set up, not only in weapons, but in everything. Every product we make has a lot of overhead or a lot of cost associated with it, meaning in US, you don't have the same insurance policies as if you have, as the way they have them in China or in other countries.
Yeah.
If there's anything that is